Anthem TV, a free streaming digital community with a click of a mouse or access to free TV shows, movies on demand, music, pay-per-view events, and so much more. Download Anthem TV on your smartphone, smart TV, or any streaming device and enjoy today.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Texas Weather Connection here on Anthem Television. It is Saturday morning, May the 4th. Be with you. We got a special guest here in the house, little Grugo. He's going to give us some force to help us with our weather forecast for today. But let me go ahead and introduce myself. I am Brian Silva, meteorologist Brian Silva. Good to have you.
Hey, I'm meteorologist Sergio Lozano. It's a sticky, humid morning here in South Texas, isn't it, Brian?
Yes. It's I know if you go outside, I think it's been wet almost every morning. There's been some drops here and there. It's very, very muggy. I know everybody's been kind of waiting for the rain to fall. They've been asking us, where's the rain? We've been saying rain, and we kind of have not been as lucky as many others in Texas.
You know, and it's funny because it feels like a rainforest out there, you know. So, but the problem is we don't have a trigger, right? So you can have all the humidity in the world, just goes to show you, without lift, it means nothing. So hopefully we can get some a little help from a weakening frontal boundary or a dry line, you know, to move in here and hopefully get at least one more round of storms before the weekend's up. But we'll see. We'll talk about that, right?
Yes. I mean, and you know, we've had a lot of storms around the state, you know, and one of the things is we've had a lot of severe weather, you know,
Yes.
a lot of flooding. And again, we've kind of missed out and we kind of end up with all these boundaries moving around. And again, we just don't have that trigger that's worked for us in our favor here in San Antonio. But I think Austin earlier in the week, they had some torrential rain. We had some heavy rain out in the Houston area. I mean, we're talking about like 15, 20 plus inches in some areas.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading some area discussions about it, and they're saying they got like half your yearly rainfall in like 48 hours. So
Yes.
I mean, it don't matter where you're at. I mean, that's going to cause splash flooding.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy because the upper level winds are so slow that the storms, once they develop, they don't move very quickly. So we kind of saw that even in our area a couple of days ago in the Braunfels. You know, they had an isolated storm that popped up in this air mass and, you know, caused a couple inches of rain before it rained itself out. But it didn't move very far. So it was kind of an isolated location. But we'll have to wait for what we call a synoptic change or a large system, whether that's a thunderstorm complex or a dry line that come in here and help us out. But for now, we're just sitting in the soup.
Yep. And so let's go ahead and let's talk about, take a look at what we have on tap for today for our show. We're going to talk about the extreme weather in our first segment, happening across the state. And if y'all been following our page, you notice that the last couple of days we've been posting a lot. And it wasn't again for so much for the San Antonio area. We were talking about San Angelo, we're talking about Abilene, we're talking about Wichita Falls, heavy populated areas that were under the gun with some severe weather. So we're going to get into those here in just a second. And then our second segment, we'll talk about the Texas weather forecast. So again, we'll go back to cities like Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, all the way out west in El Paso. We'll talk about our beach forecast. Those of y'all that are still heading to the beach this weekend, kind of get an idea as to what you can expect. And then we'll bring it in for our 7-day here in the San Antonio area, which you notice it says heat finally arrives. We can get a little bit toasty next week.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an early taste of summertime around here. But good news on the horizon. If you're not a fan of it, our modeling does suggest a cool down by this time next week. So hopefully it won't be too long. We can get a little front in here and provide some relief. So we'll see.
Yes, hopefully short-lived for the most part, because again, I've enjoyed the fact that we have not had extreme heat at this point, and we're already, you know, going into the first full week of May, and we're just going to start talking about now the heat. So that's good. That's good. We'll take the delay as long as we can. But let's go ahead and let's talk about on the storm reports that we saw. And so if you notice here on this map, we have different symbols. I mean, they're kind of tough to see, but the color code, the tornadoes reports that we got, and a lot of this is still preliminary. There is some that have already been confirmed, but we had 14 tornado reports across the middle part of the country, and for the most part, Texas was spared, except for Wichita Falls. They had a close call here. It got a little bit nerve-wracking for them because they had a very large one. Oklahoma wasn't expected to have really tornadoes on this day. On this was, I think, Tuesday, April 30th. They had already had their big tornado outbreak the day before, and so they were expecting a little bit more, severe weather, but not as tornadic.
Yeah, and so there's like a cycle, like, so if you get a large use of the energy that's available to the atmosphere, the second day or the day after, normally, the energy is not as great, so the threat is a little bit lower. So that's what we were all kind of thinking, going into the second day of severe weather.
Yeah, and that's what they were thinking too. And then all of a sudden, this large tornado just above the Red River formed, and I know they had quite a bit of damage north of the border, but this tornado started tracking southeast towards Wichita Falls, and I mean, luckily it dissipated. So that was a huge sigh of relief, because one thing that we don't want to see is we don't want to see these large and destructive tornadoes heading towards areas where there's heavy population. And it's not. Obviously, Wichita Falls is not a San Antonio or a Dallas or a Houston in terms of population, but it's still, compared to the rural country area, it's populated. So this is something that we're glad that this did not materialize further south.
Yeah, I know that the folks in Wichita Falls were sweating this one out. So I'm glad, I was able to cycle down just before it got there. So very lucky.
We'll take that. And it was pretty much every day this week that we saw severe weather. So then we saw the severe weather kind of backtrack a little bit in terms of the tornadic activity, more towards the Panhandle and out in West Texas. Luckily for this day on Wednesday, we didn't see that affecting really a heavily populated area. So this was more in the rural countryside. We did have quite a few hail and wind reports too. So severe weather was definitely spreading out across the state here, and it just kind of continued. We went into Thursday and we saw that tornado threat shift a little bit further east. And, I mean, these are rough. I mean, because now we're going back towards some populated areas like Abilene, and I mean, I know we were talking about this tornado. It was a large tornado on the ground. I know it caused some damage up there in the Holly area, and it was heading for Abilene. So let me ask you, Sergio, why do you think it didn't make it?
Well, these storms, just like any other storm, they pulse up, they pulse down, and it's all dependent on the environment ahead of the system. So, and most of these storms that develop these days, day after day, were what we call along the Texas dry line. So the Texas dry line, although it's an ineffective storm producer, the storms that they do produce tend to be severe because there's so much heat availability associated with these. So, all it takes is just a cutoff of an inflow, or sometimes there's an outflow that comes out of these storms, and that kind of chokes the system off. And I think that's what happened. So they cycle up, cycle down. Luckily, this thing cycled down just before it got there. So we're greatly appreciative of that. But yeah, these are days that you absolutely have to remain on the guard, because although these storms are isolated in nature, if you're under one of these, and if they happen to be in a populated area, it's it could be very costly. So
yeah, and one thing that we want to stress too is, I mean, we've seen in the past, especially, I know one of the big topics was the El Reno tornado in Oklahoma years ago. That this tornado was heading in one direction, and storm chasers are following it, and the community is expecting, okay, it's heading this direction, going east, and then all of a sudden the tornado makes a beeline and turns around. And we saw that with a couple of these tornadoes. I think this Abilene tornado, before it reached Abilene, it did kind of turn to the left a little bit. It was going southeast, and then all of a sudden it made a hard left turn towards the east.
These systems just kind of, they're very unpredictable, right? So like you said, they could be going a direction, and then for whatever reason, it turns. Now, one thing I will note is while I was studying meteorology, there was a couple of colleagues of mine that were doing research and why that happens. And what they came up with, it wasn't conclusive yet. They were still working on it. And I need to go back and see if they ever finished that research. But storms tend to follow greatest energy. So whether that's heat, mostly, sometimes the heat is stronger to the southwest, so it's going to want to go southwest. So unlike other storms that just kind of form on a line and head one direction because of the upper level winds, these supercells tend to go where heat is greatest, right? So that's all they were able to determine. So I remember the El Reno one that you brought up. I think that was one that the storm chaser passed away. It was a sad day, but I had friends and family that live in El Reno, or not my friends. I mean, my friends, not my family, but their friends and family over there. And I went to go help them because it was devastating. And it's just unpredictable. That's why you always have to give yourself an out, right? If you're ever chasing out there, Brian, or anybody out there, you gotta give yourself an out because these things change in a split second, and you have to be willing to make a decision quickly. So.
Right. And and that's what we saw, especially, going into yesterday. We saw this tornado threat shift a little bit further south. And we had this tornado that was north of San Angelo. And I mean, if you look on the left part of the screen, those velocities were pretty much maxing out. And we had confirmed a large tornado on the ground. But this tornado was there just to the west of Robert Lee, and it was moving southeast towards San Angelo. And so tornado emergency was issued for, I believe at that time was northern Tom Green County. And then all of a sudden it just kind of like it stalled out, it stalled, it turned to the east, and it pretty much went right through Highway 208 right there. And then it turned back north, and then it raced off to the northwest. It did a whole loop around. And I mean, it's, if you're, we were stressing that if you're in Robert Lee, don't get out of your shelter because you are nowhere out of the threat yet. And it came very close to going right over the city again. I mean, it was an insane radar loop. I mean, this thing looked like a hurricane on radar. It really did. It looked like it had an eye and everything. And
yeah, the Weather Service had difficulties, you can see, issuing these warnings. So they just kind of put polygrams all over the place because it was so unpredictable. This specific tornado will be researched. I can guarantee you that, because this is an extremely weird circumstance where the system kind of, like you said, did a loop. Now with dual pole radar that we have, you can see deep into the system. So what it looked like was a donut hole, like a hurricane, like you mentioned. And that was caused because the lack of rain within the funnel. The circulation was so strong and deep that you could actually see the void in the funnel, right? And so that's what you were seeing on radar. And it's just pretty incredible that these things, like I said, have a mind of their own. And when you're in the polygram, you might say like, oh, it's 20 miles to the east. Well, you're in the polygram, and the reason why you're in it is because of situations like this. Like, we can't predict that this was going to happen. There is no way to predict that. So just an amazing and it's just a weird circumstance that occurred here. And San Angelo is a populated area. I actually applied for a job up there, had an interview, in-person interview. I've never been up there. And they've got, I mean, I don't know what the population is exactly, but it's over 100,000 people. I mean, they have a loop, and they got, there's a lot of people out there. So, glad that they didn't go into town itself, but
because this tornado was a large and destructive tornado. I mean, this would have caused a ton of damage.
Oh yeah.
We hope that everybody, when it comes to something like this, you heed the warnings, because this is a life-threatening situation.
Absolutely.
And if this is something that we always say, hey, if you're able to get videos, get pictures of like the hail, but something like this, if a tornado is coming at you, you need to take care of yourself. You need to make sure that you are in a safe place and you are protecting your life and your family's life.
Absolutely.
Again, I'm glad that this tornado turned around and avoided San Angelo, because again, this was heading straight for them down 208. And so this was a very, very fortunate situation that this did not make it down to San Angelo. But they didn't get completely out of the woods. They did have another storm that formed. in the eastern part of Tom Green County, and they had some rotation. So I think a couple of storm spotters had reported a confirmed tornado on the ground. So they did have to issue another tornado emergency there. But it was just another night of severe weather. We had several spots there. These storms were just, once they got going, they just started rotating, and it was just a matter of them just rotating themselves out, and it's just been a rough week in terms of severe weather for not just our area. I mean, I know Austin had some severe weather earlier in the week, but we're talking about the entire state here.
Yeah, I mean, it's along most of West Central up to North Texas. So yeah, the Panhandle, you name it. So yeah, I know we're kind of complaining down here that we're not getting the rain, but I mean, I don't know about you guys, but kind of glad we're not dealing with those tornadoes.
Yeah, I'm okay with avoiding that. And speaking of rain, now we're looking at this map for eastern part of Texas over in the Houston area, and they're dealing with a ton of flooding. I mean, they have rivers that are out of their banks, many creeks that are out of their banks. I mean, we've seen some rainfall reports. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, the Trinity River. There was a rain gauge that had almost 25 inches of rain for this week. So,
some of the releases that they're doing from these dams are even higher than they were when they were in Hurricane Harvey.
Yeah,
and everybody remembers Hurricane Harvey back in 2017, and this event is causing issues like that. So that just goes to show you don't have to have a landfalling tropical entity coming in to cause all kinds of problems. You can have a system like this that just stalls, working with a ton of water in the atmosphere and sitting over the same area for a long period of time. And yeah, you're having a half year's worth of rainfall in 48 hours. That's going to cause problems.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're not done with the rain across the state just yet. We still got probably about another 24 to 36 hours of this. Again, not something that's going to be continuous, but these areas, especially in East Texas, that really cannot afford to take on any more rain, is looking like they still have a chance to see some pretty heavy rain overnight and into the early morning hours. So we'll be talking about that in our next segment with our Around the Texas forecast. So after the break, we'll break down the forecast for Houston, Dallas. We'll talk about West Texas and El Paso. We'll talk about the beach, and we'll be right back.
Innocent people are unexpectedly injured. You are not alone. One man has made it his mission to fight for you. With millions recovered for his clients and over 20 years' experience handling injury cases, he'll ride with you till the end. If you or a loved one have been injured in a motor vehicle crash or on the job, Marco Crawford Law is the firm you want to choose.
Alrighty, and welcome back to the Texas Weather Connection. Again, here with Grogu. I'm meteorologist Brian Silva. May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you, Brian. It's meteorologist Sergio Lozano over here.
Alrighty, so we talked about the severe weather that's affected the state. Quite a bit going on this week, a very active week. We're not done yet. Let's go ahead and let's talk about our forecast for the Texas area. One thing that we're going to look at first is the severe weather outlook for today. And this was actually as of late last night, and this already has been updated for today to where that level 2 and level 3 has shifted a little bit further south and southeast. And so areas that have already seen severe weather this week, you're going to be right on the gun again this afternoon. So this is something to keep an eye on. And I think even Del Rio is in the level 2, so we're going to have to see what happens with these afternoon daytime heating type storms as they fire up these supercells. Hopefully we don't get too much severe weather today, but we'll have to take a look. I mean, we're definitely going to keep our eyes on everything today.
Yeah, so these storms again are going to fire along that Texas dry line, but a little different today will be some upper level energy. So there's going to be a little bit of upper level energy associated with this that are going to form what we call a mesoscale convective complex or system. And so basically it's a fancy way of saying that a big blob of storms is going to develop up to the northwest of us, and you can see here in the future radar later this afternoon about 4 or 5 o'clock is when we're expecting that, and that blob of storms is going to make its way south and east across the state overnight tonight, and into the early hours of tomorrow morning. So that's the reason behind this. Damaging winds and large hail are going to be the primary threats, it looks like. But of course, isolated tornadoes, given the the recent history of what we've seen and the state of the atmosphere, will be able to support that as well.
Yeah, and you know, and most of the time when we start seeing these storms, you know, if we go back real quick here, we're gonna go back to the 5 o'clock, and notice that a lot of these storms right now, up in especially in Northwest Texas, they're more scattered around. They're on their own. There's not really any organization to it. So these are the type of storms that we're concerned with, because these are the storms that are your large hail producers that are more likely to go tornadic. So these are the storms that we worry about, and these are the storms that San Angelo dealt with, that Abilene dealt with, that Wichita Falls dealt with. So
yeah, you're absolutely right. We call those discrete supercells. Basically, they have all the energy on their own. They're not sharing it with everybody. So once they form a line, think of it like as, oh, we're all sharing the energy, you know, so they can spread the energy evenly among the swarms. But when they're discrete by themselves, they have all that energy by themselves to work with. And like you said, those are the most dangerous. And it looks like where initiation happens is West Central Texas today.
Yeah, and you know, and once we get into this line again, severe weather is still very, very possible with this. But the main one that we'll see, especially as we get further into the night, will be the damaging winds. That's typically what we see with most of these systems that form together, form a line. Again, we can't rule out hail, and we can rule out that isolated tornado or two. So all modes of severe weather are possible overnight with this system as it moves through. And again, I want to take a look at this one, because this one specific, know this, everybody, that there's a ton of models that come out and they're refreshed. And so this was as of last night. I think this was around midnight that we were looking at these models. They've changed slightly today. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. But we notice that this specific one model is showing from 6 a.m. to noon. Looks like we might have some training like this little almost like it's just going to kind of sit over I-10 and Highway 90 and from Del Rio all the way to Houston area. And so if this holds, we could be talking about some flooding situations even here in the San Antonio area.
Yeah, and that's the reason why the Weather Prediction Center and some of the other national entities are issuing slight flash flood risk and marginal risk for our area, because the possibility of the system stalling out. So as we get into May, especially the middle and latter parts of May, these frontal systems just don't have the oomph that they used to have to push through and clear it out. So as they run out of that momentum, they kind of stall out, and that might occur with this one. And if that does happen, you can get several inches of rain. I think last night before I went to bed, some of the models were pointing out like 4 to 6 inches in parts of the hill country. So definitely something we have to keep an eye on and see how it evolves.
Yeah, and for some of those areas, especially north of I-10, I know Austin has had some rain early in the week. We had quite a bit of rain in parts of the hill country. It wouldn't surprise me if a flash flood watch is issued later on for some of those areas in our viewing area. I know that East Texas, they have a flash flood watch all the way until tomorrow afternoon. So, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if that watch is kind of going to fill in north of San Antonio. Again,
so what they have to look at what they call flash flood guidance. So that helps them determine how saturated the ground is. Here in San Antonio, obviously we haven't had much, so
yeah.
But parts like you said, north of I-10, west of 35, they have some several inches of rain. So yeah, they're gonna have to make a determination based on modeling and climatology to see what they're gonna do. But we'll see.
Yeah, and one of the things that did kind of change from this model last night to what we're seeing this morning is it looks like that maybe there's a possibility that a second wave will form after the initial system moves through. We may see some rain form out in the hill country and then move through San Antonio and Austin, the I-35 corridor again, going towards Houston. And so right now in this model at 4 o'clock, it shows that, everything's clearing out by then, but we may actually be dealing with another round. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, see if that does materialize. Because again, if we have quite a bit of rain overnight, early morning, that would just add on to the problems that we see from from that early morning round.
Yeah. Now I will say that I've seen normally when a big system comes in like that, it's kind of difficult to get that second round because all the energy is spent. So we'll see. We'll see if it's picking up on could be a piece of upper level energy that that it's picking up on. So definitely something to monitor. Definitely not a guarantee that that's going to occur though. So,
yeah. So that's how we're looking in terms of, again, the next 24 hours or so, 24 36 hours. And I know everybody here in San Antonio is going to be like, if it doesn't rain, we're going to be in trouble, Sergio. We're going to be in trouble because we're talking about it again. And you know what? This might be finally the trigger that we need is for this just to come through and call it a weekend.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we get a good solid rain because it's going to be dry for a little bit after this. So yeah, we'll talk about what's coming.
Yeah. So let's go ahead then. Let's talk about our Texas connection. Okay, so moving over to Houston again, we're going to keep those rain chances high for today. We're going to keep it about 20%. It should be, hit and miss here and there, a few showers. I know early this morning they did have some storms that rolled through, some strong storms, some heavy rain, closer towards the Galveston area, southern Houston, towards Beaumont. But for the most part today, should stay relatively dry across the majority of the Houston area. We'll keep that 20% chance, but we'll see that rain chance start to creep up as we go into the overnight hours, especially early morning, and then we'll keep it at a 70% chance of rain and storms tomorrow. And again, anything that falls over in the Houston area is not good at this point because, again, they're dealing with already flooding issues. Could see anywhere from half an inch to who knows how much. 3-4 inches that could, depending on where the storms sit.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. I think today is kind of a day of reprieve for the water levels to kind of subside a little bit, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Gives it time for all the rivers and the streams to kind of get under bank and so they can prepare for this next round of storms that looks to hitting again sometime tomorrow afternoon. So.
We move our way up towards northern part of Texas, so we get into the Dallas area. And congratulations to all the Dallas Mavs fans out there. I think they wrapped up their series last night against the Clippers, which again, I'm okay with that because Kawhi's out, so I'm okay. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I'm sorry. Now Dallas, you don't need to win anymore. It's okay. But in terms of the forecast, we are looking at kind of jumping in the action today, 50% chance of storms. Again, we'll see most of these forming towards the later afternoon and evening hours. And again, can't rule out severe weather for them. It's just been a trend across a majority of the states. So we'll see them clearing out tomorrow. We kept a 30% chance of rain for tomorrow. That's really going to be more early on. We should see it clearing out as the day goes on.
Yeah, look at those temperatures. I mean, this is May, and you're talking highs in the 70s. Not too hard to take. They're behind the boundary, so mornings in the 60s.
Yeah,
that's downright comfortable for this time of year up there. So
just a suggestion. Just enjoy those temperatures because that 79 is going to be flipped in some locations in a few days. So we'll talk about the heat in just a second. But yeah, enjoy these temperatures, everybody, because it's slowly getting close to an end. We head out west to El Paso. I mean, they get to miss out on everything, Yeah,
they're their own entity out there. Now, one thing I did notice that parts of the desert Southwest is going to get a lot of wind. And so eventually I think El Paso will have to deal with that later next week and some of the blowing dust that's coming out of Southwest desert part of the U.S. So definitely something to monitor. But for this weekend, it looks just beautiful. Temperatures around 90 for afternoon highs, but it's a dry heat out there, Brian, right? Yes.
Nothing like what we have over here with this swampiness. I mean, it's gonna be nice. It's gonna feel great outside. That breeze that they're gonna get, it's gonna be, we're gonna see winds, especially tomorrow, start to pick up as the day goes on tomorrow. We'll see gusts up to 25 to even maybe 30 miles per hour. But I mean, it's gonna be nice. I mean, even 90 degrees. I mean, I know it's 90 degrees, but it's a dry 90 degrees. So we'll take.
And if I'm waking up early in the morning at 60 degrees, it's comfortable for at least a few hours. I don't mind summers like this, where it's like 60 degrees, and then I get up to 90 degrees in the afternoon. But man, I got several hours I can work on the yard or do what I need to do. I mean, it's not bad.
Yes, that is. It would be nice if we could get that.
Would be awesome.
I'll be happy if we were able to have 60 degrees here in the mornings in the summer, and fine, we have hundreds in the afternoon. That's fine, but
That's
give
fine.
us something. Make it an even trade.
Yeah, I agree.
And then let's talk about our beach community. So down in the Corpus area, today should be good. It's going to be pretty breezy coming off the Gulf. We're looking at winds again gusting to about 25 miles per hour. I mean, again, pleasant temperatures, not much movement. We're going to look at highs today in the mid 80s. Same thing for tomorrow. It looks like that they could end up with that tail end of the system as it moves through tomorrow. So we're going to give them about 30% chance of rain. It shouldn't be anything prolonged. Hopefully it clears out pretty quick there, and those of y'all that are still at the beach tomorrow can enjoy it. But I think the timing for tomorrow in the Corpus area would probably be mid-afternoon. It looks like. Again, things could change overnight. We could see the system speed up. We could see it slow down. So right now, based on what we're seeing, we're looking at mid-afternoon as the best chance for some showers and storms in the Corpus area tomorrow.
And I did want to mention though, I was looking at wave heights. It's pretty rough out there. So wave heights of 4 to 6 feet. So if you're going to be doing any swimming out there or boating or anything, you just want to be aware of that the seas are a little bit rough as we're transitioning from spring into summertime. So
take heed of the warnings. I know they post the flags out there, in terms of the wave conditions and the rip tide and the levels. And so if you ever get into a rip current, they say swim parallel to the beach line, to the coastline. So definitely
it's easier said than done, by the way.
It is. I know. And that's with 6 kids, that's one thing that I'm always worried about is, seeing them out there, and I'm like, they know what to do, but when it comes down to the moment, fear takes over and everything. And so definitely just, exercise.
Like in days like this where the wave heights are high, rip heights are high, I tell my kids don't go any higher than like knee height. That's a good rule of thumb. I think once you get above that, you're kind of, as long as you're a good swimmer, but you're taking a risk.
Yeah. And we're going to see kind of the same type of conditions now. I think South Padre area, Brownsville area, they should avoid really pretty much any rain at this point. We'll see if that changes, but for the most part, this weekend should be nice and breezy. Again, that nice breeze coming off the Gulf. We're looking at winds solid, 10 to 20 miles per hour. We could see some gusts 25. It's going to be nice though, 80 degrees, 79 degrees for the highs. I mean, it's not too warm. I know that water's slowly warming up.
Yeah, it's 78 degrees, I think, the water temperature now. So you can get in there and after a couple of minutes and be okay. Not like
I mean, it's a definite increase from spring breaks. I think spring break it was still in the lower to mid 70s for the water. It was cold. We were down there in Corpus, and it was cold. So we'll see that warm up as we get further into the summer. But we also know that the warmer the waters get out there, then that's not good for any type of tropical system that may threaten our area. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a break here. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the 7-day forecast for our San Antonio area. And if you notice there, it says the heat finally arrived. So those nice temperatures that we were enjoying for the last few weeks, it's going to come to a quick end here in just a few days. But we'll talk about that right after the break. The Texas Weather Connection here on Anthem Television.
We come from all walks of life, all races, all genders, all styles. We are more than a rock school, more than the art of dance. We are a destination for art, creativity, performance, and community. We are Anthem. Join us in our mission, enriching the lives of every student through the power of belief.
All right, and welcome back to the Texas Weather Connection. Meteorologist Brian Silva.
Meteorologist Sergio Lozano.
And we're glad to have you here on this fine Saturday morning. It is almost 10 o'clock, and we know what everybody loves hearing is they want to know what's the weather going to be like for the next week or so. And so that's what we're going to get into. But before we do that, let's just kind of recap real quick what we're looking at for overnight here in the San Antonio area. We're looking at storms. I know we keep saying storms, and we haven't had the storms really roll through. I know we've had some disappointed fans out there and some upset fans. But you know, I think our best chance is going to be tonight, honestly.
Yeah. We have a little bit of what we call higher confidence because we have a bigger system and a bigger lifting mechanism coming our way than we had. So our confidence is a little bit higher that after late tonight into tomorrow morning that a complex of storms is going to develop out to the northwest and track southeastward. This is pretty typical of May. And so climatologically speaking, this is going to be a normal weather pattern to bring us a good shot of some rain. But as we mentioned earlier in our segment, that some of that rain could be rather heavy and produce a lot of rainfall.
Yeah, and we can't exclude the fact that there could be some severe weather too. I mean, one of the main things that we'll probably be looking for is some strong winds with this as it moves through. But again, we can't rule out the possibility of some large hail, and we could have an isolated tornado too. But I think those two threats should be a little bit lowered, especially given the timing of when this is going to roll through. And the fact that it's not going to be those discrete supercells that we were talking about earlier. It's going to be more in a linear fashion. So typically when we see lines of storms come through, the wind is really the main kicker that we see. But again, we can't rule out the other modes of severe weather. So we'll definitely keep an eye on this as we go into tomorrow. And we'll see what the models post later on too, and what the newer ones come out with. Because again, things could change from 1 hour to the next, and we've seen that. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for some rains. I know we definitely need it. And so here's our 7-day forecast, Sergio. I mean, what do you think? I mean, it's not too bad, at least early on.
Yeah, pretty typical May weather. It's a little warm, but nothing too hard to take. But as you can see, as we go throughout the week, the ridge of high pressure, or what we call the subtropical ridge, is going to develop to our south and kind of muscle its way northward, put it into the rain chances, and give us a little bit of a taste of what summer is going to feel like here.
Yes. If you notice, oh man, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're looking at highs here in San Antonio in the low to mid 90s. And
yeah,
Sergio, if we're talking about 90s here in San Antonio, mid 90s, what do you think that means for areas like Laredo and Eagle Pass and Del Rio?
Well, I'll tell you what, Brian, they already had temperatures over 100 degrees this week. I think Del Rio got up to 103 or 104 one of these days. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it over 105, 106. It's going to be a hot time, regardless any way you cut it, anywhere in the state. But yeah, out there it's going to be well over 100. Here in San Antonio, although we're only going to be, well, I only say only, but still mid-90s is still pretty hot. Our humidity is going to still be elevated. So our heat index values, we're going to have to take it easy because I think 103 to 106 heat index values in the heat of the day are very likely.
Yeah, and so if you're going to be out and about, I know there's softball and baseball playoffs going on right now for the high school levels. CYO still has their season going on. Little League, if you're outdoors, make sure you stay hydrated, especially middle of the week. This is especially when it's humid, your body starts sweating and you lose those fluids in you. So make sure you stay hydrated out there. And it's, again, especially if you're out west in Del Rio or Eagle Pass or even Laredo, I mean, it's going to be toasty. We're talking about, again, highs in the mid, let's say 103 to 108 range. It's possible. But then after that, we're looking at Friday and it looks like we kind of cool. Yeah, I want to say cool. It goes back into the 80s, but it's a kind of a cool down for us. We'll take that.
Yeah, some of our modeling it's been hinting at a pretty, it's for the time of the year, it's a pretty strong cold front for moving through the state. So we'll keep an eye on it. It's a little early to get too excited about it, but it definitely looks like we're going to go back to the direction that we should be going into. So at least temperatures closer to average for this time of year. But it's a possibility. It could be a little bit cooler than that if the clouds hang around, or if there's rain associated with that. We could be a little bit cooler, but. Yeah, I always stress that the first heat wave is the most important because our bodies haven't really adapted to that yet. And so, yeah, you want to take the frequent water breaks, make sure you hydrate before the activity. A lot of people wait till the activity, and it's kind of late to do that. You got to do it before. and of course wear light colored clothing to help reflect the sunlight's heat. So yeah, this first little taste of heat is going to be important for us to kind of prepare for.
And I think one thing that, again, we'll have to look at, especially as the models refresh as we get further into the early part of the week and the middle part of the week, especially if that front does make it far enough south, into the area that we're in here in San Antonio, or even just, the middle of Texas or northern Texas. I mean, we're going to have the heat in place. We're going to have the humidity in place. We're going to have the instability in place that, we could be looking at another round of severe weather, this time next week. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. We'll see how the weather progresses over the next few days. And we'll fine tune anything that we need to, and make sure that everybody's prepared. Again, we're the Texas Weather Connection. We're making sure that we got you covered up in Dallas, over in Houston, down the valley. West Texas, you don't get much action out there, but we'll definitely keep you updated with the winds. I know we're talking about, that it's going to get pretty windy out there. Up in the Panhandle, we got you covered. So definitely make sure you follow our page. Keep up with any of our warnings that we post. If you have any questions for us, feel free to let us know. We're always available to take any types of questions. If you need a specific forecast for maybe where you're going somewhere, we'll get it back to you.
Absolutely, and we always like seeing the comments, so we appreciate any and all comments. So keep doing out there.
Yeah, we had a comment from Rosalinda, my mom. She said good information, so thank you, Mom. Hopefully we are reaching out to everybody that that can take this information home and put it to good use, because again, this is it's an everyday thing. We deal with weather changes all the time, and unfortunately some of that involves some life-threatening weather, so we definitely want you to make sure that you're always weather aware. But once we get through today, I think we should be fine for the next few days. Looking at again today's forecast here for San Antonio, notice that we did put in there 70%. That really, if you notice, is kind of towards the right on the screen there. We're kind of saving that for later tonight. We'll see the chances of some light showers here and there throughout the morning, especially for the next couple hours. We could see a few spotty isolated showers develop with the daytime heating throughout the day, but really our main focus will be probably, I would say, after midnight tonight.
Yes, when it's so humid the way it is, Brian, you sneeze and you can call the shower, basically. So yeah, we got to keep an eye on that. Always keep the umbrella handy, but it's going to be isolated today at best.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, after, I would say, 11 o'clock midnight tonight, that's when we will be under the guard here. But we'll definitely be monitoring what's going on in Northwest Texas, because whatever, that's going to be the direction that it's coming from. So we'll keep an eye on that. Yeah.
So with that being said, we will again keep you up to date if anything major happens, if anything major changes. We'll keep an eye on that radar tonight. We'll be posting some updates later on tonight as well, with that approaching system coming into the Hill Country, and then eventually into the I-35 corridor from here to Austin. So with that being said, we thank you for joining us here on the Texas Weather Connection on Anthem Television. I'm meteorologist Brian Silva, and I really appreciate you joining us.
Meteorologist Sergio Lozano. Have a great weekend.
Have a good one.
Our family has been serving South Texas for generations. Just like you, our Window World family is made up of moms.
We are Window World.
Dads.
We are Window World.
Sons, daughters.
We are Window World.
We are Window World.
All raising our families right here in South Texas.
And right now, we have a special offer for you and your family.
Call or visit online today and get 8 double hung windows installed starting at only $5,250.